Hey guys, welcome to another Sasquatch Theory podcast. Tonight, I'm joined by Pete from North Carolina, a lifelong outdoorsman, Army veteran, and witness to decades of strange activity along the Dan River, the Smith River, and the Blue Ridge Mountains. What started as missing deer, unexplained sounds, and strange movement near the river eventually turned into a face-to-face encounter with an 8-foot tall Sasquatch that approached him and his son while hunting. Pete describes a charcoal gray creature with short hair, a massive brow ridge, sunken eyes, thin lips, and a powerful muscular build, a being that moved with intelligence and purpose. From bluff charges, red-eyed figures, broken neck animals, rocks and limbs thrown at fishermen, tree knocks, whistles echoing across the river, and unexplained lights moving through the forest, Pete's story connects a long chain of events that span multiple properties and locations. This is not one encounter, this is a lifetime of experiences that built up to something he can no longer explain away. If you enjoy listening to Sasquatch Theory, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel, like the podcast, comment down below, and hit the bell notification. Also, if you have a Bigfoot or cryptid encounter you would like to share with me here on the channel, feel free to reach out sometime at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. Also, you can join the membership today to help support the channel and the research, and I would really appreciate that. With all that being said, let's dive straight into Pete's Bigfoot encounters from the state of North Carolina. All right, Pete, welcome back to Sasquatch Theory. It's an absolute pleasure to have you back on the podcast. And you told your encounters from North Carolina, from the Dan River. If you would, let's talk about those experiences, those encounters again, and kind of refreshing everyone on what you saw and everything that's happened since our last podcast, okay?
All right, back in on my first podcast with you, I talked about a sighting me and my son had back in it was 2012, March the 25th. I never will forget it. We went out into the river bottoms to get some river cane, and there was this place that I'd hunted for like 12 years, and I'd had all kind of weird stuff happen to me there. You know, I'd had animals stole from me, deer that I'd shot stole. I'd hear vocalizations, wondered what they were. Had stuff moved around. I'd actually was in a blind and had one of them walk up behind me. But the morning we had the sighting, we walked up you had to park. Used to, you could ride in, but the four-wheelers got so bad, tearing up his land and everything, he put up a gate, and we parked outside the gate there. We walked about 75 yards. We topped this hill, and there was this long bottom that went out. And when we topped the hill, I thought I was looking at a man. And way out in the corner of the bottom, I seen something. I thought it was just an explosion of movement. I thought it was something that looked like a bear. It was running on all fours. And my son was sort of standing to the left front of me, and he was froze. And all of a sudden, I caught something out of the corner of my eye to the left down the hill towards the creek where the bottom ended. And it was, but anyway, caught movement. And I looked, and this thing was running up the hill towards us. It was about 7 or 8 foot tall. It was running right at us. I just froze. And my son was still looking at the one running out along the bottom, the real long bottom. And then all of a sudden, this thing just veered off and went up in the woods. And But when we went out into the field, it wasn't registering me what had just happened. You just, everything you've been taught, stuff like that don't exist, but it does. But, at the time, it wasn't registering with me what I had seen. So we went on out in the bottom, and we were getting the river cane to make some arrows. And while we were standing there, we're in a huge bottom right there along the river. You could look out along this tree line, or people call them hedgerows, tree lines, property lines. But you could see this thing, the one that had run out along that long bottom, it had went up, and it was standing there watching us the whole time we picked the river cane. And my son, he was bent out of shape. He's going, Dad, let's get out of here. I said, it ain't bothering us. And I said, if it comes towards us, we'll just go down the river. And but it stood there the whole time until we left and watched us. And I tell people now, if you got a camera, if you got a cell phone, always take it with you, because you just don't never know what you're going to run up on or see.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. What did the Sasquatch look like? Did they both look identical, or did they look different?
the one, I really didn't get a good look at the one that run out along the long bottom, because it was standing maybe 30, 40 yards away. But it was just so much movement going on, you didn't know what to look at. And then this other one come by us. My best recollection, what I can remember is, I never wrote anything down, but I'm starting to. This thing was about 7, 8 foot tall. It was covered in like a charcoal gray or grayish black hair. It wasn't a long hair. It's more like fuzz. The abdomen didn't have no hair on it, and you could see every muscle in it. I mean, it was ripped. It's the only thing I can say. It had there was no hair around the face. It was just like the hair went around it. Had a flat nose, thin lips, raised eyebrow, real abrupt, sunken eyes. If you looked at it, you'd say ape, maybe human looking, both, maybe. It's what I seen. But I'd seen them before, and I didn't know what they were. I thought they were bears because they were on all fours. I'd seen them twice before. But the only thing that got me about that, when a bear sees you, it's gonna bolt. It's not gonna wait around. It's gonna bolt. And whatever this was, it was on all fours. And I was down there another time getting river cane and looking for mushrooms and morels, and it watched me the whole time I was there, and it was on all fours. But as time went on, I talked to you. I got out of service in, I would say, it was 1980. I spent 3 years in the Army. And when I got out of the Army, I was helping a guy in tobacco, and he had several properties, and I started getting into airhead hunting, and I'd go to this one place I airhead hunted. I also catfished at night. And I remember me and a fellow, we went down one night and catfished, and we I was sitting there looking down the bottom, and I tapped him on the shoulder. I said, "You see that light coming up the river bottom?" And he said, "Oh, that's a street light." I said, "There ain't nobody down, ain't no houses down in here." I said, "This river bottom goes probably, it was probably a mile long, and then also it went where the river bottom stopped. There was a big creek come in, and up that creek there were two creeks that met, and right in that fork was an Indian mound, and that's where that light come out of the woods at." And but I kept watching that light. He kept fishing, and finally this light was about 50 yards from us. I tapped him on the shoulder. I said, "Look at your street light right there. It's moving." He said, "Let's get out of here." I said, "I've been wanting to go for the last hour." But as time went on, I never did think much more about that. But as time went on, I hunted some other places, and there was one bottom in particular. It was another huge bottom here along the Dan River. I would say that bottom was probably almost 2 miles long. And when I first started hunting the bottom, you don't think about things, but I remember as you come down to park at the bottom there were some people that sort of lived up the road there, not far from where I parked, but there were elderly couple, and they had a German Shepherd dog, and he would come running down there every time, and he'd bark at you, and I'd always throw my hand up if them if they were out in the yard. But I remember it was like maybe 2 or 3 years. I hunted that bottom probably 10 years, but I would say 2 to 3 years I was down there, in that time frame, airhead hunting. And it was farm road that split the bottoms in there. And I was walking along that road there, and there was that German Shepherd dog laying on its side, and it was dead. And I said, "What low life has done shot this dog?" I thought maybe a hunter down there had shot the dog or something. And I walked over to the dog, and I turned it over. There was no blood on it, but I got to know his head was wobbling around, so his neck must have been broke. And I'm going, well, daggone, how'd this dog die? Well, I didn't think too much more about that, and you just don't, you're not, when something's wrong, but you just can't put your finger on it. So, as time went on, I started finding more dead dogs down in there with their necks broken. And I think one of the last times I went in that bottom, down in the far corner of the bottom, there was the river made a bend in there, and there was a huge thicket right along the river there, and some bottom ash in there and sycamores and stuff like that. And I was hunting right in that bend there. It was a little village site there, and I was hunting airheads. And I said, well, I'm going to walk down that thicket, look out across the river there, because I know as long as I'd hunted that bottom, I never had. So I go down in that thicket, and I'm walking up along the river there, and there was this bottom ash, white ash. And right below it was a hunk of meat, half the size of a tire, laying below that tree. And I'm going, what what in the heck? You know, and up, there's a cow pasture, and down, but it's really an upland cow pasture. And the only thing I thought, you know, something killed a cow and brought the meat down there and put it under that tree like it was hiding it. But I'm going, well, a bear or a mountain lion's going to eat it right there, you know? They're not going to carry something and hide it. That would take hands, you know. It just weirded me out. And I got out of there that day. I said, there's something strange going on here. So I left. And that was one of the last times I hunted that bottom. But it was, I always thought that it was you was being watched in that bottom. You know, you got that feeling you're being watched. But going on back, that was my experience with that bottom. But mainly all the bottoms that I ever went in that area, I always thought I was being watched. You just had that feeling like you had eyeballs on you. But then I bought, as time went on, me and my son, as he got older, we started doing some fly fishing together. And we'd go up on the Upper Smith River. That was a tributary of the Dan. Well, it's right in the area where I live, the Smith flowed into the Dan, the Mayo River, let's see, Cascade Creek and Wolf Island Creek. Those were two big tributaries of the Dan. But up on the Upper Smith, we were up below the Blue Ridge Mountains. We were at the foot of them. And it was a place we used to go. We'd park, go up the river, do some fly fishing and spinner fishing for trout. And I remember one time that we went up, we were wading up a river there, and the river made a bend, real sharp bend in there. And it was a bluff there. It was rocky. Not no big trees, but it was some. And right as we got in the bend of the river there, where that bluff was, it was something that went up that bluff. And it sounded like a cow or a buffalo going through them trees, knocking the limbs off. And buddy, we went back down the creek, got in the truck and left. I don't know what that was. Didn't know what it was, but now that I look back on things, I have a feeling I know what it was. But as time went on, we fished that place some more. And I remember we had parked at this other place. This guy gave us permission. He had a cow pasture in there, kept his horses, and we would park there and walk out through the pasture to this one spot, and then we'd wade up the creek. Well, I remember we were fishing that day, and we were doing pretty good. We were having a good day fishing. And we walked up, and there was this, it was a bank, sort of a steep bank. And we walked up that bank, and we were in the corner of a bottom. But off to the left, it was a bluff that come down. There was some boulders in there. And it sounded like a baby crying. I said, son, you hear that? That's a baby crying. Well, I started walking towards it, and he grabbed me. He said, Daddy, that ain't no baby. I said, what do you mean? He said, that ain't no baby. Why would a baby be out here in the middle of nowhere? So that was another time I got weirded out. We walked on down the river. Back to the car we left that day. But I remember as time went on, I kept fishing that place. And I remember one year we went up. Well, I went up there by myself. and it was in March, was into February, March. It was still cool. I mean, had to wear waders, had to layer up, it was still cold, but still some good trout fishing. And I walked up on this sandbar, and there were 3 sets of barefoot footprints. And I'm going, somebody's been down here fishing and walking in the creek barefooted, and now that I look back on that, why would anybody be down there in cold weather walking around barefoot on a sandbar? So I just sort of pushed that off to the side. I really didn't think much about that. But as time went on, I bought me some land along the Dan River, and I started letting people come fish, and then they tell me stuff that happened at night. They had rocks and sticks and stuff like that thrown at them. And I'd look at my son. I said, I thought they were going down there at night catfishing. And I looked at my son. They coming down here getting drunk. We were laughing, but I just blowed that off. And then I had this other guy. He come up to me and said, "You mind if I go down there fishing at night?" And I said, "No, I don't care if you go fishing. Just be careful. And you got any stuff with you, just pick it up and take it with you when you go. I don't care what you do." So it was about 2 weeks later, I seen him, and he told me that he was fishing. He heard a woman screaming. And he said, "I actually thought it was a woman getting murdered." And he said, "I started going to the sound of the screaming, but the screaming was coming towards me. And then all of a sudden, back in behind that screaming was more screaming. And then straight across the river, something was screaming." He said, "I had a bad feeling come over me. I left the rod and reels and everything, and I run, and I didn't stop till I got to the car." And I told my son about it, and I said, "Well, daggone, what's going on down there at night?" I bought the land. I've hardly ever used it myself, except for maybe I had some friends come down. We went kayaking, and other than that, that was about it. And then I had some other people come, and they said they heard something they'd never heard before, and it caused the grandson to start crying, and they left. And then that led up to that particular time there, it led up to my sighting, because I was hunting across the creek up there, and I was having all kind of stuff going on with me. I know that I had shot several deer, and I found where they bled out and they were gone. I thought somebody stole them, but my son told me, said, "Daddy, where's your deer? They done bled out right here." And I said, "Well, where are they?" "They're gone." And I blowed that off as somebody stealing them. But I didn't know at the time what it could have been. I just blowed it off on people, just pushed it off on people doing it. So, but as time went on, I moved from that area, and I moved up on the Smith River. It comes out of the mountains and flows to the Dan right here where I live. About maybe 5 miles along the river above where my land used to be. But anyway, where I'd moved to, I didn't have no neighbors, none. And town was 2 miles away, Uh, I think my nearest neighbor was maybe a mile, and my front yard was a river, and across from it there was a 100-acre park that didn't nobody go on, and the guy that owned it. I talked with him one day, and I asked him if I could go walking over there. You know, when hunting season wasn't in, he said, "Well, Pete, don't nobody hunt over here." And if you go walking, if you see anybody, you look after it. You over here more than I am, and if you see anybody you don't think needs to be over here, or they're tearing up something, run them off. And I said, "Well, I will." So they gave me a place to go walk, and take my dog out with me too. But like I said, I didn't have no neighbors. Maybe the first 2 years I lived there, wasn't nothing significant, it happened. But I remember it was back in maybe 2008. I got off of work early one night, and if we worked a lot of overtime and we wasn't doing nothing, we could take overtime reduction. If we need to do something next day, we could leave work early. So I took some overtime reduction that night, and I left the plant at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it took me an hour to get. The drive took me about an hour, to get back home. So I come home that morning. I got home exactly 4 o'clock in the morning. Parked the car, got out. Like I said, there's nobody around me. And when I shut the door, right up above the house there was an old farm road that went in, or a logging road where they'd done some timbering in there. But up on that road there, and this is 4 o'clock in the morning, it was something. It was like a howl scream. Started out as a great big, real loud howl, and then it went into a scream. And I said, "What in the world was that?" And I just froze, because I'd never heard nothing like that. Well, I was fumbling to get my keys, and I finally got in the house. I told my wife about it, and she said, "You're crazy. She's just messing with me." She said, "You didn't hear nothing." I said, "Well, you ought to have been out there." So, as time went on, it's like other little things started happening. I got to noticing stuff, like I had like one really, significant stuff, but I used it to work with. I split wood at the back of the house, and I had some wedges get stole. Just little stuff, you just couldn't put your finger on it, how it got missing. But it's just little stuff. And I thought, well, somebody's coming up here at night getting this stuff. But I remember right after that, my wife had this, I believe it was her first encounter. She went out that night. It was about, it might have been 11 o'clock at night. She let the little dog out. And when she got, as you come out the front of my house, it was like a great big cement patio, and we'd sit there in the summertime, and around the corner there was a great big deck on the house. But there was a deck went around my house, 3/4 of the house all the way around, and we sit up on a bluff looking down at the river. But up on top of that bluff, the driveway went down, and she looked down at the bottom of the driveway, and she come back in and said, "What's got red eyes?" And I was yanking a chain. And I said, well, it was a drunk. And she said, shut up. That wasn't no drunk. It's something with red eyes down there. So I go out and look around. I don't see nothing, but you know, it was just like little stuff. And then she started hearing like stuff across the street, you know. She said, it sounded like a dog, but it was like somebody mimicking like a hurt puppy or something. And never did see it. But I remember my son, he was still living there with me, and he went out on the deck. He said when he walked out on the deck there one day, it was the yard. I really didn't have no yard. It wasn't much of a yard anyway. And he said it was something off to the side there on top of that bluff where we were at. And it run off that bank. And he said whatever it was watching us, and it was big. Well, we'd walked over there and looked, and it was a well-worn path coming up from the river up that bluff to the top where my house was at, off to the side there. And as we were there was a great big poplar tree. And it had these vines growing up it. And where the poplar tree was, we had these great big bay windows, and you could look to the house there. Well, my son said, Dad, look yonder. Said all the vines are wore off down here, and up there they're still growing. Like something had ripped those vines off or wore them off, standing there. But I said, that's strange, ain't it? It's like something standing there and pulling them vines off. But I remember my son, he was doing some trapping up the river there. And he put a lag, he was trapping otters. He found this otter slide. And he put a lag bolt in it, and he even put this I'm not a trapper, but it's a thing you drive in the ground and it holds the trap too. And he said that was right in the middle, the trap, and that one thing was right in the middle of the otter slide, had it covered up. And then he had the lag bolt chained to that too in the tree. This was a 10-inch lag bolt, screwed all the way in. It was about 2 or 3 days later. He said, Dad, come here. I want to show you something. So we walked up a river, maybe a half a mile where he was trapping. And the lag bolt, everything was jerked up out of the ground, out of the tree. Trap was gone. He said, Daddy, I said, do you think a bear got in the trap? Because that's the only thing I could think of in. And he said, Daddy, this was yanked out of the tree, out of the ground. And I'm going, yeah, you right. I said, whatever that was, pretty daggone big to yank that out of the ground and out of the tree. But, you know, not all things up there didn't happen, you know, at once. It was like little things, like down there on the damn river. It was just like little things that all led up to one thing. And it was over a time period too. It might have been weeks, months, maybe something would happen. And then I remember my son coming back to me and said, come here, I got to show you something else. So we go up the river there, and there was this great big gum tree, and it was sort of bent out of this. This was a steep bluff too. I mean, I just can't. Some places is almost straight down, but right here where he took me was like a gum tree had sort of grown out and up. But 9 foot to the ground, claw marks on that tree. It was wore out, whatever was doing it. I told my son, I said, that's pretty strange. Then I got to noticing all around us, the trees were dead. It was like that one area, all the trees were just dead, rotted, dead, just, I don't know, strange. And I remember going up the river there one day, and it was this tree had fell down next to the river, but it fell back away from the river. Well, as I was coming back, I noticed there were, I thought there were tree limbs that had broke off a tree when it fell, laying up against that log of the tree. So as I go by and look at it, they were laid up against it. And I said, well, maybe they washed in there. Then I got to thinking, well, that's on the downstream side of the tree. Couldn't wash in there, you know. So I go around, these limbs were laid up against that tree. Almost looked like a little shelter or something. You know, you really have to know what you were looking at and sort of catch it. But that caught my eye. And then at night, you would hear a tree knocking up and down. I'd sit out there on the patio at night, you would hear a tree knocking. Let's see, what else? I heard more vocalizations, tree knocking, just all kind of stuff. And my son, my youngest son, him and some of his buddies, they would go over and play in the park, you know. And I remember one time he was sort of late getting home, and he told me that he dropped down. There was a bridge right below the house there, and went across the river. And he said when he dropped down beside the bridge there, and that's another big bluff in there. And he said when he got to the bottom of the hill, he could hear something up in there walking around where he had just come from. And I told him, I said, you don't go back over there no more and stay that late by yourself. Or if you go somewhere over there, let somebody know where you're at. But as time went on, like I said, you know, I lived there 15 years, and it was just so much stuff had happened. And I remember I was sitting out on the patio one night, and I heard somebody like they were beating on a tree across the road up on this bluff. And I said, I wonder who's over there this time of the night. So I was sitting there and listened to this. And I had there's a piece of lumber laying there, and I hit the deck with it a couple times, and it got real quiet. Well, I was sitting there. You could hear something like, I couldn't put my finger on it, but I could hear something, and it sounded like it was shaking a tree. And I said, what in the world is that? And then right down below me, where the bridge starts, it sounded like something was going over the guard railing and rolling down that bluff. And I'm going, well, what in the world is that? And then all of a sudden, it just got real, real quiet. And then all of a sudden, I heard crack, boom. And it had pushed, whatever it was, it pushed over a tree. I didn't know it then, but the next day I walked up in there and looked, and it was a tree the size of a dinner plate that had been pushed over. It didn't break the tree. It broke the roots in the ground. That's what made the noise. And, buddy, I left from up there that day. I got out of there. But, like I said, as time went on, you know, stuff little stuff, little stuff, little things. And I remember my wife had went to work. She worked at the nursing home. She went to work at night. My son took the dog out, and son come back and said, "Daddy, the dog's gone." But the dog always went out. As soon as he relieved himself, he'd come right back to the house. And it'd been gone about 10 minutes. He said, "Dad, the dog's gone. I don't know where it's at. It's gone." But I called it, stayed up most of the night calling it, and went out the next day and looked for it, didn't even find a trace of it. It was gone. Whatever got it was in the yard on my property and knew that it come out. We let it out every night. But like I said, I'd heard other things, but we'd lived there about 15 years. Then the state come in, they had to rebuild that bridge, and they claimed eminent domain. And we had to leave. So we started looking for houses. And I remember the deck went around the house, and it was in October. And I fixed breakfast that morning for me and my wife. Everybody was gone, and we went out on the deck. Was gonna eat. I cooked breakfast, walked around the deck. She was getting ready to come. The sun had just come up. It hadn't been up long, but that was one good thing about that place. We had a lot of good scenery. And then there was I was sitting there waiting for her to come out, and up on that bluff where the tree had got pushed over, I heard a whistle, like like me and you'd whistle, just a quick whistle, and then straight across the river was another whistle right down below me across the river. And I'd heard about at the time, I heard these things whistle, and I said, "Well, I'll be daggone." But right after we moved, it might have been where I'm at here now. It might have been 2 years after we moved. My wife come up to me one day and said that I wasn't going to tell you, because I know it would have probably got you upset and everything, but she was there by herself one day at the house, and I bought her this swing, treated lumber swing, and I put it out there on the deck where she could come out, during the spring and summer, sit out there. And like I said, we were in the woods and fields and rivers and just beautiful scenery. But right across the road, there was a service road that went up into that old park, and it had a bluff up there and a hollow. And that hollow had rhododendron all in it. But she said she was sitting there, and it come down to the edge of that service road. And she said she was sitting there swinging. When she swung back, she happened to look over there. She said it was a man standing there watching her. And need to mind you, there's nobody that really goes over there. And she said she didn't see nobody go in that morning. And mind you, she's there by herself. And she said she was keeping an eye on him. She said she swung back again, and he was crouched down. And she told me, at first I thought, what's he doing with a scuba diving outfit on? And then she swung back again, and she could see that wasn't no scuba diving outfit. It was hair that she was looking at. Well, she got up and ran inside, locked all the doors, went up to my son's room, was looking out. She didn't see it no more, but she locked all the doors at the house and But she finally told me, but I told her, if you ever have anything like that happen again, you tell me. But like after that, we moved, and like I said, we moved, and now I'm in a different place now. And but you know, as you delve into this stuff a little bit, sometimes you just sit back and listen. You really don't have to say nothing. I remember I was at this outdoor store one day, next town over, about 14 miles from here, Madison, North Carolina. I'll just tell you what it is. It was a sporting goods store there. It mainly sold fishing equipment. And I went up there to get some lures to go trout fishing. And I was just standing there, and this guy was talking, and the guy was waiting on me. He told that guy, I said, "You crazy." He said, "Why don't you just shut up? You crazy." And I heard him say something about Bigfoot, and I really didn't. I just heard Bigfoot. So I got my stuff. That guy went on outside. I think he was doing some work there too, because when I went outside, he was getting some tools out. And I said, "Sir, can I talk to you for a minute?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "What was you I heard you say something about Bigfoot." And I said, "Have you ever seen one?" He said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "Years ago, me and a friend of mine, we were up on the Mayo River. And that's another remote part of this county. Mayo just is nothing but woods, bottomlands, forests, bluffs, just little other little tributaries coming into those Mayo River." But he said where he was at, he was down below a place called England's Old Mill, and I knew where he was talking about, but I didn't know exactly where he was at. I never did ask him, but I knew about where he was at. He said him and his buddy had to drive in to this place to go fishing, and they set up camp. They were there, like he said, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning. They had a fire going, and they were fishing, talking. And his buddy tapped him on the shoulder, and he said, "Look over there across the river. Some man standing there." He said he looked over there. He said, "Sure enough." He said, "It was a man." You said where the fire was lit up, it was lighting everything up. It glow around you. And he said, "Over there, you can see it. See that man? It was like a man standing there." And he said, all of a sudden, the man come down that bank, was crossing the river towards him. And he said, about halfway across the river, he said, "Look, if this is a joke, it's done damn gone too far." Well, he picked up his gun, and he said, all of a sudden, he said, you could see red. This thing had red eyes. And he said, I shot it 3 times. He said, I shot it. He said, this thing let out a scream. We run, got in the truck. We left everything, got in the truck and run, and got out of there. He said, we come back about 3 days later. He said, everything was tore up, tent, rods and reels. He said, everything was tore up. And, but he said, they never did go back to that place no more. They salvaged what they could, and they never did go back. But he also told me that the next county over, Stokes County, there was a lot of sightings there. So he knew a preacher had seen one. He knew other people that had seen them. I had talked to a guy. His father used to be chief police over in that area somewhere, one of those towns, and he said his father owned some land up on it was a creek called Snow Creek, and they were he'd go up there bow hunting, and he said he was up in the stand one day, and he said something come down. It was right at sun had done gone down, but it was still light. He said this thing, whoever he thought it was somebody at first. He said It come down in behind him, walked off to the side of him to the left. And he looked, he said, that wasn't nobody. He said, whatever this was, it was covered in hair and walking upright. So it walked down. He said it crossed the creek, went up the creek, and over in front of him was a rock overhang. So it got up under that rock overhang, crouched down, was watching him. And he said he got the heck out of there. And I've talked to another boy, and he was talking about some sightings back in that area on the Stokes, Rockingham County line, that they had seen one guy hunting had seen a male and a female Bigfoot, is what he said, and this particular person, he lived I would say he lived in between Madison and Stoneville, North Carolina. He said it lived off a road called Janet Road, and he said his kids rode the bus every morning. They had fixed them a little place. The bus had to come down in there and turn around to pick his kids up. So his little boy and little girl, that's where they caught the bus every day. And he said that that afternoon when he got home, his little girl said, Daddy, there was a man standing down that day up under a tree watching us. He said, what? He said, yeah, it was a man. He was dressed up in black. He was standing there watching us while we were waiting on the bus. And he said, I want you to come with me and show me where it was at. So him and the little girl, his son, went down there, and he said, where was he standing? He said, right up on that tree limb right there. And he looked, the limb was probably about 8 foot off of the ground. And she said he was just standing just barely up under it. And he said after that, he never did let his kids ride the bus anymore. He took them to school. And then he said he knew a person going to work one morning in that area. Said he seen one cross the road, and as he got up where it was at, it was laying in the ditch, balled up. I guess where he couldn't see it. This thing had balled itself up and tried to hide itself, laying in the ditch alongside the road. But I had a friend. He was a game warden, and I'm not going to say no names or anything, but I asked him one time. I said, "What?" I said, I know him real good, and I just cracked on him. I said, "What do you think about Bigfoot?" I said, "Have you ever had any experiences with that in your life?" And he told me, I mean, he didn't waste no time. It was either like he started talking, either he's going to shut me up or he's going to tell me something. So he started talking. He said he was a game warden too up in Ashe County, and he said that he got a call one day to go to this guy's house. Something was killing his dogs. Well, he went there, and he said, back up in there where I went, said wasn't hardly anybody around you. Nearest neighbor might have been 4 miles away. But he said, guy said, come here, I want to show you something. And he said he went down the hill there, and there was this Rottweiler, and he said it was literally torn in half. And the guy said, well, that ain't nothing. And back up in there behind his house, about a quarter mile away, it was boulders. They climbed up on them boulders, and there were pieces of meat drying on the rock, like jerky. And he said, that didn't hit me. He said, it wasn't registering with me. what was going on here. So he said, well, that ain't nothing. Come out, I want to show you something else. So they went in behind them boulders down the hill, and there were 8-inch circumference trees that were twisted up in knots, broken, twisted, and put in knots. Now, he said that got my attention. And I said, have you ever had any other experiences? And he told me, he said, one time I was working this illegal duck blind. And this was in Rockingham County where I live. And it was a swampy area. And they were going to go in there and catch these people, catch them coming in there. He said it was about 5 o'clock in the morning. They were going in there. And as they were waiting to where these people were hunting, had this illegal duck blind, he said all of a sudden you could hear limbs snapping. And then all of a sudden it's like howl, scream. And they just froze. And he said the only thing come to mind was monster. And he said, we got out of there. We went out back to back with our guns drawn. And he told me of another incident in Stokes County where this guy's dogs or cows or something got loose. And the guy, he said, I knew this guy. And he said he wasn't scared of nothing. This guy right here, he was just a big old farm, been farming all his life, you know, down to earth, good people. So he was out looking for the cows. So he come around the curve in a dirt road near where his farm was. And one of these things is standing out in the middle of the road with red eyes looking at him. And said, he just sat there, and this thing finally went on off in the woods. He got out of there. And the game warden told me, he said, after that, he said, I don't hold it. He asked him, said, have you ever seen anything else? He said, I don't go over no more. I don't even go on my land anymore. He was scared to go on his own land. And he, now I'm getting away from Bigfoot here. They had a call. We're going down a different rabbit hole now. Had a call to go to this river bottom. That was another river bottom I used to hunt arrowheads in. And it was on down below the river bottom where I'd found the dead dogs and a hunk of meat. But he said that these people called them and they were seeing lights over in that bottom at night. And they thought, well, you know, it was somebody going in there spotlighting at night. So he got 2 other game wardens and they went over there. 2 of them got over in the bottom where they were seeing the possible spotlighting going on. And there was an old farmhouse there and a barn. Well, the game warden I was talking to about all this stuff, he went across the river and sit on the opposite side of the river, the Virginia side of the river there. He said about an hour later, he got a call from the other 2, said, get over here right now. You got to get over here right now. So he thought that they had called him and had him arrested and wanted me to come over and help. So I went flying over across the river. When I got there, they were outside the blazer. So they were tore up, been out of shape. So he said that they told him that this light come down out of the sky is about 40 foot in circumference, like a ball of light, hovered right over them. A light come down on them. One of them got out and stuck his hand in the light and said that thing just shot right back up where it come from. Disappeared. And they would see orbs too. And I've heard other people talking about seeing orbs and strange lights in that river bottom too. But I'm trying to, I had all this stuff laid out to talk, but that was from him. And then also I had a sheriff deputy told me that up off the Mayo River, one of their patrolmen was going through there late at night, and he seen one stand on the side of the road. Now this road is remote, some western part of the county, and he seen this thing stand on the side of the road. Said it was huge, covered in hair, and they always ragged him about it and all this, but said he was a good person. The deputy also told me they have calls every now and then, people hearing vocalizations that they stuff they never heard before up in there at night. And let's see, trying to think of some more stuff here. But Miguel, if you got any questions you want me to like to ask me.
This activity sounds all too familiar, and it's very similar to things that I experienced here in Missouri. Do you feel like there's just Sasquatch all up and down those rivers, or do you feel like the Sasquatch possibly followed you from place to place? As people have mentioned, they can mark or tag you and kind of imprint on you, and when they pick up on your smell or your energy, they choose to interact with you. What do you think?
I don't know, Miguel. I'm not a researcher, but I know I've seen these things. My wife has seen them. Son's seen them. All my kids had experiences there. They heard them. Tree knocks, howl, scream, yeah. I mean, I can just go on and on and on. But another sighting, I really wanted to tell you this one. This was a good one, but it wasn't in North Carolina. It was across the line in Virginia. My son had a friend, and they used to go up to his uncle's. He lived up in the mountains. He had a big cattle farm. And they used to go up there hunting. Well, Michael was telling me that his buddy told him that his uncle that owned that place where they went hunting, he told Michael's friend that he went up there one morning deer hunting. He said it was in fall, October. Said he rode the four-wheel up to the top of the mountain. This guy had like a 300-acre cattle farm up there in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and right near the Blue Ridge Parkway, and said that he went up, drove his four-wheel up, got below an oak tree and sat down, and said it wasn't really cold that morning, sort of cool. Said it got warm. And he said he was sitting there and he was looking off down the hill. Said he kept noticing something white up in this tree. And he said he hunted a little bit more. He didn't pay much mind what he was looking at, and said he decided he was going to go on home. He wasn't seeing nothing. And said that I'm going to go down there and see what that was up in that tree. So he got on his four-wheeler, rode down there where he looks up in that tree. He said about 25, 30 feet up in that tree, there's a doe draped over a limb.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild right there, ain't it?
Yeah, it sure is. And when you found the meat up in the tree, was it like an entire cow or just a part of the cow?
No, it was below the tree. It was sitting on the ground. It's like it's like you'd walked up on just a piece of big hunk of meat. It was just meat, and it was right at the base of that tree, but it was in that thicket. And also another thing I had seen, and this really caught me too. Where I lived on the river, I would go walking every day. I'd take my chocolate lab with me, and there was this deer. It was a buck. It was a 4-pointer. and it was laying right on the edge of the river. And I thought it was bow season. I thought somebody had shot it and with a bow, and it run, and they never could find it, couldn't track it well. Anyway, I walked over there to it, was looking at it, wasn't a drop of blood on it. Its neck was broken. For 2 weeks, and need to say it was 80-degree weather, the buzzards wouldn't touch it. They were sitting up on limbs looking at it and wouldn't touch it. Now, how strange is that? And after 2 weeks, the deer was gone. It was gone. It wasn't drug. It was picked up. It was gone.
Yeah, that's terrifying. So these Sasquatch were killing dogs, killing cattle, killing deer, and that's pretty spooky. I feel like they were killing the dogs because the dogs were giving away their presence, or do you feel like they were just killing to kill?
I don't know. I know the guy across the river, where I had my sighting, I finally talked to this guy, got him to open. Well, what it was, I was a member of this club. It's called the Naturalist Club, and we it's sort of a historical thing too. We've done hikes in the county, and we go to different places. And I went and asked this guy. It was an old plantation farm, and it's where one of the biggest Indian villages in North Carolina was. It's called Lower Sartown. That was the name of the Indians, Sarah. They were Woodland Sioux. But anyway, I went and talked to him and asked him if the club could come over and do a little walk, a historical thing. And I told him, I said, if you want to, you can lead the trip and show people. He said, well, Pete, the guys that own the land told me they didn't want nobody in there. I guess they afraid somebody get hurt and want to sue them. I said, I understand. I can't blame you, but I would like. I said, I don't think it's nobody in the club that would try to do that, but I understand. But and then I said, before I go, I want to ask you something. I said, have you ever seen any strange animals over here? He said, oh yeah. He said, my 2 grandsons walked up on a Sasquatch. One of them was 5 foot from it when he walked up on it late in the afternoon. He said he peed in his britches. He said the thing done its arms some type of way, like it crossed its arms and made like a grunt. And said they run. And I asked him, I said, you ever seen the strange lights over here? He said, oh, that's a given. I see them all the time. He said, I see a bluish white one. I said, yep, that's the one I seen. That was years ago before you were in here. And I used to come down here catfishing at night. He said, I see a white one, a green one, and a red one. He said, that's a given. He said, the guy that owned the property down here below me, he said, he was petrified of this place. He said, you didn't catch him down here after dark. And if he come down here to feed the cows, he got out of here before dark, or he come in the morning. He didn't like coming down here by himself. He was petrified of that place. And me, I don't know what he's seen. He wouldn't tell nobody. He wouldn't tell nobody. But I have a feeling I know what he's seen. But they say they hear stuff over there wailing at night, high, vocalizations. It's an old plantation farm. They said, and here's another thing, sort of getting out of the Bigfoot thing, but he said, I see a man in gray over here all the time, and they'll go to see who it is, and he's never there. They'll see him, but when they go, and where he's at, he can't get out of the field. But when they go, he's gone. So,
yeah, I feel like those experiences, you're not getting away from the Bigfoot topic. It all sounds like Bigfoot activity. Even the strange lights, the orbs are definitely associated with the Bigfoot activity, whether it's just some unknown behavior that they display and possess or something supernatural. It's certainly tied in with the Sasquatch activity. And I'm talking about from the perspective of my personal experiences and not just what I've heard off the internet. I've had for sure Bigfoot activity, and within an hour of that activity, I see these orbs floating through the woods. Definitely not a firefly or a drone flying through the woods, just something moving with a purpose that seems intelligent.
yeah. I had another experience with orbs. Years ago, I used to do a lot of rock climbing when I got out of service. A bunch of us would go. North Carolina's full of climbing spots, but it was one place that I loved to go. It was Stone Mountain, North Carolina, up near. It's set right off the parkway there near Dalton Park. But we were camped out. We went up to Dalton. The campground in Stone Mountain State Park was full, so me and my family, a couple of guys I was going to climb with, we went up and camped there, and we were cooking, had a fire going, and I told them I was going to walk out in the woods and, get some just loose stuff laying on the ground, kindling, stuff like that, and I'll be back in a minute. So when I walked out there in the woods, I was picking up stuff, and I looked over to my left, and there was like 25 balls of light about the size of a golf ball, and they were just all going around one another, green lights. And I was just amazed by that. I don't know what it was, but I was amazed. I just sit there and watched it till the lights just disappeared. What that was, I have no idea. And I have a Cherokee friend. Man, he was real good friends, and we talk every now and then. And I asked him about these orbs. I said, "Y'all got a lot of legends," and he said, "What'd you see?" I told him about these orbs, and he looked at me real funny. He said, "Oh, you got the little people down there too, don't you?" I said, "The little people?" He said, "Yeah, that's the lights they carry. That's one of their legends." And then there was another place up near Cherokee, maybe 40 miles up the Blue Ridge Parkway, maybe 30 miles, place called Devil's Courthouse. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's one of the rock formations that sits along the parkway. We used to go, that was one of the first places I ever started climbing. And then the rock is called the Devil's Courthouse. Well, I looked up the legend one night, and this is steeped in Cherokee lore too. The slant-eyed giant Judah Kula danced in a cave that the devil dwelt in. He would dance for him, the slant-eyed giant. And that place is steeped in Bigfoot lore. People see strange stuff, lights, all kind of stuff. And then you had the legend of Boojum. He was this girl would go up in the mountains and take a bath in a stream, and Boojum would come down and hide in the bushes and watch her. And they got married, but her mother didn't like him, and she left. And every now and then he'd come around, he'd hoot for her. And they'd have a hooting in it. They'd call back and forth to one another. And that's some of the lore in Appalachia. That's pretty wild too, ain't it?
Oh, yeah, it is for sure. I'm not sure if that's the area that the Native Americans would talk about avoiding when they travel through the mountains. And it kind of sounds like it would be from the activity that you described. And I can see how the orbs might be connected with the little people, but I also believe it's connected with the Sasquatch. Do you think there's any chance that the properties that you've experienced activity at on the Smith and Dan River and all the creeks, do you feel like maybe there are giant skeletons buried there or something supernatural happening? Or do you think it's just purely physical, undiscovered primates living on the land? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I you know, what do you call that? The weird factor.
They call
And
it
then
the
you got
woo.
yeah, the woo, whatever you want to call it. I call it the weird factor. But anyway, then you got the scientific theories and all that. And Native Americans have been seeing them since they were on the continent, on back 13,000 years ago. So, and then you got, I think it's something special. I think there could be giants buried here. I know where there's a mound on the Mayo River. Some say it's a mound, some say it ain't. But I'll send you a picture of it and and it's vidded site all the way around this thing. Now, if it's a mound there and it's vidded site all the way around, it's got to be a mound. I mean, even if it wasn't a burial mound, it was probably something ceremonial. But far as giants being found, now I've been told, now this was leaked to me. This is just what the fella told me. Somewhere in Franklin County, Virginia, it's a county up from me, a couple counties up from me, where I live in Virginia, on some farm, they have found standing stones. And they're keeping this quiet, from what I understand.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I did some research while you're talking, and it says reports of giant skeletons along the Dan River, which flows through Virginia and North Carolina, are rooted in 19th century accounts of unusual findings in Native American mounds rather than verified modern archaeological evidence. These claims typically describe skeletons measuring 7 to 10 feet tall, which are generally regarded as hoaxes or misinterpretations of animal or especially large human remains. But it does sound like people have found skeletons on the Dan River.
Well, I had a friend tell me he loved to hunt arrowheads. And he told me he knew a lot of people here in the county. He was well liked, and he rubbed shoulders with the big guys, And there was the farm where I had my sighting back in '72 when Camille, one of those hurricanes, come through, and it just dumped tons of rain. And it washed that bottom out in there and the upper end of it. And it washed through a vidded site. Well, they didn't know it at the time. They found like 23 skeletons. Now, that could be what maybe they're talking about. Maybe there was some remains found there that were giant, had giant features to them. But he said it was like 23 skeletons washed out down there. He said, well, they brought the law enforcement in. They couldn't identify them. Well, they called in the state brought the archaeologist and said this was a vidded site. And it dated to I think, if I'm not mistaken, 1200 AD. I've read a report on it, but they didn't talk about the remains. Now, that could be what you're talking about right there.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I have no doubt, because when the Spanish come through here,
Mhm.
uh, they talked about giants.
Oh yeah, and all the areas that have giant skeletons that have been found in the past are all areas that people experience Bigfoot activity today. And the Sasquatch, they're giants, and it's the same reports that I've read from people that have found the giant skeletons. Like it was 7 foot tall, 9 foot tall, 10 foot tall, and then the people today that are encountering the Sasquatch are giving the same descriptions, and they say the giants were supernatural beings. And we're seeing the same thing today with the Sasquatch. Like people are just seeing these orbs, or there's something throwing rocks and limbs at them and they couldn't see anything. Like it's almost like it was invisible, which is strange.
Yeah, yeah, that is strange. But
Mhm.
we're talking about the giants here. Um, I have no doubt, there's all kind of legends about giants. If you read some of the archaeological, like up in West Virginia, a lot of those mounds had giants in them. It was the Adena culture, and supposedly these people were European. And where I told you, up at 2 counties up front, they're finding standing stones now. They in a county over from there, they found a working site, like a what do you call it? They smelted metal there,
Mhm.
and it's dating back to 900 A.D. Now, who were those people? Indians didn't make metal. They might have messed with copper up around the Great Lakes region, and they really didn't mess with the metals that we got here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now
It's
that's just what I read, and
mhm.
but 900 A.D. That's pretty good ways on back there. Who could that have been? Early Europeans, Vikings,
Mhm.
Celtic people? Who knows?
Yeah, people speculate that the giants created the pyramids, Stonehenge, and many other archaeological finds that have been discovered, and that they just don't have an answer to, like, who could have built them. It must have been an intelligent race, and it's obvious, like it's all written on the wall, like the evidence that there was an advanced civilization living here. And people have found giant arrowheads, huge tracks, and just things that, like you said, Native Americans couldn't have built on their own. And I like how you said earlier that you had a bunch of little things taking place that you just couldn't put your finger on, that all led up to something huge and significant. And that's what I experienced in my property too. It was just a bunch of things that I wrote off, but I knew that they weren't right. Like something was off, and something in my gut was telling me that the things I was finding just weren't adding up until the day that I seen the Sasquatch just stand up and walk off, and it all clicked.
Yep. When something don't look right, when something don't feel right, when something don't smell right, it ain't right.
Hmm. Yeah.
And something you getting ready to experience something. But I let's see. Trying to think. There was another sighting this guy told me about or experienced. Him and his brothers went to this lake in his county. It's Regional City Lake. They were below it at night. That's sort of out there in the boonies too. And uh, he said his brothers got drunk. He didn't drink any. He said it was about 12 o'clock at night. They were all passed out. He was sitting there, had a fire going. He said all of a sudden limbs, rocks started landing in the camp. He said I never did see what was doing it, but I was having to dodge it all night. And he said the next morning my brothers got up and said I never did tell them, but that's what went on all, like small logs and limbs and rocks all night long. And I think too, you go out here along these rivers at night, and you build a fire, and I've talked to a lot of people when they catfish and they build a fire, and that's when they start having these experiences. When you build a fire, they're gonna come to it. It's like ringing the bell. They're gonna come. But
yeah, I agree with that. The dogs that you found, what did the neck look like? Like, was it twisted like a Twizzler, or was it like bent back, like in an awkward position?
Just bent, just hanging off the side, sort of bent back, hanging off the side, and I'm going, well, damn, neck's broke. And like where the dogs were laying, the grass all around it was just flattened. Like something real heavy had been standing there. That's one thing I noticed too.
Yeah.
But I've talked, I can't really remember all the stuff. But trying to think here. I've had all kind of people tell me about hunting experiences at night, people fishing, stuff, running down through the woods at them, screaming, getting in between them and their friends, stuff like that. What do you call that? Just messing with them, intimidation, stuff.
Yeah, they're getting really territorial.
Yeah, but they had a fire going. They were fishing at night, and I heard about two guys. They'd been in Afghanistan, and they were in the SEALs and Special Forces and stuff like that. And they counted something, and both of them come out back to back too at night with guns. And people seeing them standing up. Oh, and I know a boy, he about 5 miles from where I'm sitting at right here, right now. There's as you go on up above me up here towards the Virginia line, there's a road that cuts off and goes back over towards the Mayo River. A guy was going through there with his wife one night. He told me, said they seen one standing on the side of the road. And another guy said he's a preacher that's seen one, and said it was sitting in the middle of the road up in there somewhere. So I think I've been sitting in the woods hunting, and the woods just go dead. Have you ever experienced that?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm sitting there in my stand, birds are chirping, squirrels all around me. Got 3 or 4 deer out there in front of me. Insects, just all kind of animals around me. And all of a sudden, everything just disappears. The insects, the birds, the deer, squirrels, everything. It's just like something just sucked all the sounds out of the forest. It's just dead. And you feel like you got laser beam eyeballs on you. And that's another one of the weird things that, if you're not used to that and that happens, you are getting ready to have a sighting. I think. Now, I didn't have a sighting there, but I think it's one of the things that leads up. I call it the pyramid of a sighting. Something happens over here and it just keeps on going up in blocks. And then one day you're going to be in the right spot at the right time, and then you're going to have your sighting. But there are some people just walk right up on something,
Yeah, and it's awesome. You've met a lot of people who have seen these things, whether it was at the sporting goods store or the game warden or friends and other family members. And yeah, I can't imagine how you felt when you and your son were down there by the river bottom, in the cane, like picking sugar cane or whatever it's called. And that one Sasquatch.
River cane.
Yeah, the river cane. And the Sasquatch was just standing there watching you guys. How long did that encounter last?
It lasted about 30 minutes.
Wow. That's a long
I
encounter.
didn't feel I don't know. I didn't feel threatened. My son was bent out of shape. He said, Daddy, he kept telling me, Dad, let's get out of here. I said, son, it ain't bothering us. I said, let's just get the river cane. We'll get on out of here. It was a 30-minute sighting. And where it was standing, you could see it. It's like, now I know y'all got bottoms out there, like you got a big bottom here, and right across be another bottom, but in between you is a row of trees. They call them hedgerows or property lines or tree lines and all that. But he was standing in between some sycamores, and he was standing above some saplings. And he was 150 yards away, and I could see his eyes and mouth. That's how big it was.
Yeah. Which one was the most significant encounter?
I'm guessing that one was probably maybe 9 foot tall.
Oh, wow. Which encounter stands out the most?
That one. I mean, I've seen them. I'd seen them before, but I didn't know what they were. I thought they were bear.
Yeah.
But they do run on all fours. I'll tell you that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen them run on all fours, and it reminds you of like a black bear or a chimpanzee moving through the forest. Once they stand up, you know it wasn't a bear.
I've never seen nothing. I've never seen a bear run 300 yards like a damn. It put a track star to shame. I mean, you couldn't. I mean, it wasn't no use when that thing run up a hill. It wasn't no use to run. You couldn't outrun it. Actually, I thought that was my last day on the planet. But it veered off.
Yeah. Do you think it was just trying to intimidate you, or do you think maybe it confused you for some other Sasquatch?
I do. I think it was a bluff charge.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And another part of me makes me wonder.
If it had wanted to hurt you, if they'd have wanted to hurt you, the big one we seen, he would have hurt you.
Yeah.
There wasn't no way you could have got away from him.
No.
But when most of the time I would go down there when I first seen them, they were on all fours. I thought they were bears. Felt like I had eyeballs on me. And I turned around and looked, and I said, daggone, there's a bear. And they were like 250 yards away. And I'm going, I'm daggone big bears, boy. But bears are going to bolt. I'll tell you that right now, they'll bolt. I walked up on a sow and 3 cubs, they bolted. They ain't going to stand there and look at you. They're going to bolt. Now, if you get near one of the cubs, it's going to be a different story.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling, but those things, whatever it was watching me. Bears are bolt.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the bears that don't bolt, they might walk up to you and they're acting really strange. And they say those types of bears, there's like something not right in their head and they could possibly eat you. But these Sasquatch, they showed intelligence, the way they were moving and hiding and then revealing themselves. Like it definitely wasn't a bear. And if a bear does stand up on 2 legs, it doesn't stand up for very long. And it's really awkward when it moves.
Exactly right. They might stand up real quick, like maybe to get a better view of you, and then they're going to come back down and bolt. But whatever this was, it bolted. They bolted, and it was running on 2 legs across. And it was running like a bat out of Hades on 2 legs across 300 yards. And up at the upper end of that bottom, you can see this big tree with this big limb up on it, and that thing run right up under it. And I went up there, And I'd say that limb was probably 9, maybe 10, 11 foot tall. So whatever that thing was out there, that was probably 9 foot tall, I'd say.
Yeah.
But you could see it just stand there, just clear as day. My boy's going, Dad, let's go. Let's go. I said, well, it ain't bothering us. We ain't bothering him. Maybe he's just as curious as we are.
Mm.
I know I sure am.
Is that why you stayed? You were curious?
Do what?
Is that why you stayed when the Sasquatch was watching you guys? Because you were curious?
Oh, heck yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, I don't know. I didn't feel scared. And I'm not really scared. I've walked all out in them bottoms, 4:00 in the morning, going to my stand, fog up to your shoulders. I don't know. I've never been scared. I just don't scare easy.
Yeah. No, I completely
Maybe
understand.
it's one thing I'm scared of, but I ain't gonna say that here. All the stuff going on in the world, that's the main thing I'm scared of. But I'm not scared of them.
Yeah, I say it all the time. I'm more scared of people than I am of Sasquatch.
Yeah, boy. Just watch. I tell my wife, everybody, I know wherever you go, watch your surroundings. Look around before you get out of the car. Watch your surroundings. Yeah, watch your surroundings.
Yeah.
Don't care where you at. You, me, everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't trust people. That's for sure.
Now, you've seen them orbs too.
Yeah, I have. There was an incident where I got whistled at by them, similar to what you described or what your friend described when he was down there fishing. And I went back about an hour later because I couldn't get those whistles out of my head. I was like, that was no bird. That was definitely like people. It sounded like a farmer calling in his cattle, like loud, sharp whistles. And when I went back, I saw these 2 orange orbs about the size of like a volleyball or a basketball moving together through the woods right at nighttime. There was no sound. They seemed intelligent. Definitely not a firefly or a drone, because drones are loud and they can't move through the woods at nighttime. And it was strange because I've already had activity there an hour before that. And then later on, I would say maybe 3 weeks after that, I saw the Sasquatch stand up and walk off into the woods, just like the Patty film. And I kind of tied it all together. I still didn't think the orbs were connected to it because I didn't know what that was. Then I started listening to Bigfoot reports from other people, and they started mentioning these orbs. And I was like, wait a minute. I was having Bigfoot activity up there, and I seen those lights. It's connected to Sasquatch. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I've talked with I remember years ago, I had a buddy, and one of his friends had just got out of service. They was out riding around one night drinking beer. And right there where that bridge is at on the Virginia North Carolina line, where I told you the game wardens had that bottom staked out, seen a UFO. They pulled in at that bridge, and he got out to relieve himself. And so when he turned around and looked at his buddy's eyes was big around his 50-cent pieces. And he turned around and looked. There was this ball of light there, and it just shot up in this tree and went into like a bunch of little lights. Then they were gone. So they got out of there. I think that's a phenomenon, a real big phenomenon here on the Dan River. Because I've heard so many people, farmers, people fishing, hunting, just out, piddling around, airhead hunting, stuff like that. That's a given up and down this Dan River.
Yeah, definitely connected. In my opinion, from the information that I've learned and the experiences that I've had. And I definitely feel like it's not a coincidence. And the orbs are a huge clue to the activity.
Yep. I think you get out in these remote bottoms around here and you have, like I said, the little things start happening to you. Strange stuff you can't put your finger on.
Mm-hmm.
Watch out. Watch out.
Oh yeah.
But that guy told me when his grandson walked right, he was 5 foot from it. So he just like took his arms and out in front of him, just crossed them real quick like that, the Sasquatch, and went like a little small grunt. And they turned and run. The youngest one peed in his britches. So
yeah, I don't blame him.
Yeah, I'd probably, I don't know, I'd probably levitated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I noticed the bulk of the activity that you experience, your friends and your family members and people that you've met in the area, is all centered around hunting and fishing and the river bottoms. So they're definitely territorial. They don't want you occupying their space, especially for hours at a time or day in and day out. And you're going after their food sources, whether it's deer and fish, and it might be ticking them off.
Well, I think too, if I relied on my stealth to get a deer, just say I was a Sasquatch, I haven't got no gun. Me and you got guns. When they hear that gun go off, that's like ringing the dinner bell. Just watch him, see which way he's going. And when you get there, but that one morning, a deer got stole from me. My son was going, Daddy, where's your deer? It's gone. I said, I know. But it was almost, I don't know. Never heard no cars, four-wheelers. Didn't hear nobody talk. It was just real calm that morning, still, serene, and it just weird. But I think when you shoot and they're around and they're watching you, they're going to watch and see which way you're going. It's like ringing the dinner bell.
Yeah, I agree. They're definitely waiting for you to make a kill shot, and they come in and steal the deer.
I've known other hunters around here too said that they've had deer stolen. Matter of fact, I listened to some guys have a conversation with a guy that owned the archery store about their deer getting stolen, and they would hear strange stuff. And that was that river bottom above me where I had my sighting. Oh yeah, it's I think this place is and I always now listen this is what a guy told me. It was a farm on the going south along the Cascade Creek. That's a big tributary of the dam, and it's huge up in creek bottoms in there, river bottoms. And they were talking about. He was out there cutting the hay or something off of one of the fields, and it was getting towards dark, and he was just sort of going like in a circle. He was getting ready to stop, is what he told some people, and said it because he's going to come back the next day and finish. He said he was going down a long field, and when he turned, he looked back where he come from, and it was one standing on the edge of the field watching him.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild too.
Yeah, it certainly is. Yeah, we're getting towards the end. I got another call here in about 15 minutes. Can you think of any other experiences that you'd like to share? Anything that you forgot?
My son, the guy that he works with, up there with a guy, I seen one standing on the road about 5 miles from here. They owned a big farm up there, maybe couple hundred acres. And when he was young, his son, when he was young, he seen one up there eating apple out of a tree or something to that effect. But other than that, that's my life story with Sasquatch. Like I said, I'm no researcher. I like it now. I listen to sightings, and one time I got obsessed with it, and I sort of got away from that, you know. And you don't have to say nothing. You can just sit around and listen. And sometimes you'll hear a good sighting, but anyway, I'm gonna let you get on. I hope that helped you out a little bit. And
oh yeah, definitely.
I always like telling my story, and I don't care who believes it. If they believe it, it's fine with me. If they don't, that's fine too. But like I said, one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
These things mimic other animals, birds. They can whistle, make you think they're the Farmer John out there or something. But yeah, they mimic other animals and birds, like I said. And I've heard of people tell me about hearing stuff, and you know, and there wasn't nothing there, and that makes me believe it was probably a Bigfoot, a Sasquatch, whatever you want to call them. Forest people, I think them things got 100 names. Then I know the Native Americans gave them 100 names.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Miguel, I'm gonna let you go. You get on to your next one. I enjoyed talking to you today. I always enjoy talking to you.
Yeah.
I was messing with you about your tent. Mm-hmm. So you can't hunt them Bigfoot sitting in that tent. But anyway.
No, I always appreciate you and the encounters that you had. They're certainly legit. And when I hear you talking about the experiences, I know that you're not pulling my leg. Like this encounter story that you shared with me, it's one of the best ones on my channel. And I can tell from the ones where people are just kind of fabricating things and misinterpreting activity, or, you know, there's something seriously wrong with them, to where there's hunters and outdoorsmen and people that have these things showing up on their property. You can tell the difference where, I guess, in some stories, I don't know, some of them sound out there, I guess is what I'm saying. And some you can tell like they're genuine reports.
Yeah. I'm not much into that woo stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I know some of it sounds sort of wooish, or strange, but I know these people that I talk to, they're good down to earth people. They're farmers, hunters, fishermen, fly fishermen. People love to hunt airheads. People even into history, you know. But anyway, I'm gonna let you go. I enjoyed talking to you, and we'll stay in touch. And you need to come out here, and we'll go to some of these places.
Yeah, I'd definitely be up for that. Keep in touch with me, and we'll try to make it happen in the future.
We can do it.
All right. That sounds good to me. And Pete, you did an excellent job at sharing your experiences. If you encounter another forest booger, definitely get in touch with me, and I would love to hear about it.
Oh, you will.
Okay. Well, you take care of yourself in the meantime.
Look here. I've won the lottery, but it wasn't money.
Yeah. No doubt about that. Only if you had a camera when you're down there in the cane bottoms on the river.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what, I don't go nowhere without it no more, cause
that's how I am.
You just don't know what you're going. I mean, even with people, you don't know what you're going to run up on anymore. But especially if you go out in the woods, take your camera with you.
Absolutely. All right, Pete. It was good talking with you, and I look forward to our next chat in the future.
We can do it.
All right. Take care, my friend.
You take care too, buddy.
See ya. All right, so those were some truly amazing encounters shared right here on Sasquatch Theory. And Pete's experiences stretch across years, multiple rivers, private land, and remote mountain areas. From close-range visual encounters to vocalizations, whistles, animal mutilations, red-eyed figures, and activity that followed him from property to property. These weren't isolated moments, they were repeated events that involved his family, friends, fishermen, hunters, and even local game wardens, all witnessing pieces of the same strange pattern. If you've had encounters like Pete's or experienced unexplained activity in your area, I want to hear your story. You can reach me directly at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. And as always, stay alert, stay safe, and remember, not everything in the woods is supposed to be there.